Hey, friends, welcome back to the Called to Lead podcast. I'm so excited to be doing another interview today with a gal that I have been trying to get on the podcast for honestly, I think it's been years, as even in my Scale Without Social days. And as I, prior to this Restore Collective journey, have been hoping to equip anybody that loves this industry, whether that's as a partner or distributor, with stories that can inspire them. And so you've heard a little bit of her story on the podcast before, but Lyndsay Raffield is the next founding partner mentor that you're going to get to meet today. So let's dive into the interview, and I'm so excited. Yay, Lyndsay. I'm so happy to finally have you on here. It's really cool and kind of full circle because we definitely met. I feel like it was a 100% a God thing years ago when we both attended the Walk to Emmaus retreat. And our husbands got to meet. Adam and Roger actually kind of got closer through that journey. But it's just wild that something that the Lord put in our lives that was so transformational, then months later connected us for you as a customer. Then, of course, you became one of my partners or distributors on my former team. And then you just, girl, you soared in leading by example and all the things. Like, you were one of my top sellers of all of my directs, and you led with such a servant heart until you felt called away from the business model. So I want to talk about that, but I definitely want you to be the one to kind of share your beautiful story and how the Lord's woven things into your journey in network marketing. But I'm just thrilled to have you here. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited. This is my very first podcast interview ever. And it's funny because people may not know this, but I edit your podcast. So I have edited a lot of podcasts, but I've never been interviewed. So this is really cool. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. I know I love that, like, you've gotten to watch this whole journey of this podcast, and you have literally been a part of Restore Collective from day one, and have been a huge part of it. And what a blessing to be able to have you as one of our founding partner mentors and to be able to watch the way the Lord's worked in your heart and your journey. So before we get into that, though, I would love for you to kind of share the backstory of your experience of why you were hesitant about network marketing, how you finally dove in, and just even like where you're from, your family, all the things.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start from where I'm from. I'm from the Savannah area. I don't know if anybody knows where Ellabelle, Georgia is, but that's where I grew up and currently am living at the moment. My family's living with my parents right now, which that's a whole other conversation. We're transitioning from living in a camper for the last 4 years, and now we're gonna put down some roots and really excited about that. Which, funny enough, I thought that going into the camper life would be the biggest one of the biggest parts of my story, which it kind of is, but it's funny that it's actually realizing that being rooted is what's really such a blessing, and thinking about going back to having roots put down and having a home. One of the biggest things that I miss is being able to just have people over to our home and just feed them and hang out and, fellowship. That's my favorite thing to do. So, anyways, so I have a daughter. She's 11 years old. She's homeschooled. I've homeschooled her since she was in kindergarten, which is crazy. I never thought that I would be the homeschool mom. And I think I said this the other day on our Meet the Family call, but people will say, "Oh, you must be so patient because you're a homeschool mom." And I'm like, "No, that's not actually how that works." There's a lot of tears. There's a lot of arguments, unfortunately. And actually, a lot of times I feel like people who have their kids in school are more patient than me because there's so many different things to like deal with on a daily basis with that. So it's funny how the perspective is different. But yeah, she's 11. Her name's Jovi. And actually, this is her little picture. I didn't plan for it to be like where I set up and her face to be right here, but I sat down and I was like, well, that's kind of cool that she's right here. So that's her, and she's obviously not that little anymore, which is sad. And then I have been married to my husband Adam for 12 years. I always have to ask him how long we've been married. I can't ever remember, which is sad. But yes, so met him actually in a karaoke bar, which is so funny because that if you know me, you probably would never think that that's how I met my husband, but that's a really cool story I'd love to share one day. So I guess I'll go back to how I got into network marketing. I actually did hair for 8 years. I guess I'm still a cosmetologist, but I did that for 8 years part-time. And when I was doing that job, I would have so many people say to me that were in network marketing, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, you should do this. Like, it's perfect because you do hair. You're with women all day. This is like the perfect thing for you." And I never felt like anything was right for me anytime somebody offered that to me. And of course, my husband, he would never, I guess, well, he would tell me no for certain things that he felt like wasn't the right thing for me, but I trust him in that. And so there were so many times when I would just like mention that somebody said something and he'd be like, "Please, I just really don't want you to sell anything. Please just don't go there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think I want to go there either." So was never intentionally going to do network marketing until I met you and enter Heather into the story. And we met at the walk to Emmaus, which was that spiritual retreat that we went on. And the only reason that we actually said hey to each other is because we had a mutual friend who actually I did her hair, Bethany, which she's so special to both of us. But she told me to look out for you. And so when we were like at registration, I remember seeing you and being like, I think you're Heather. And you're like, yeah, you're Lyndsay. So we just said hey in a moment. And then that was it. But somehow we became friends on Facebook, and I saw you doing your makeup. And what's funny is I tell people this. I'm like, normally if I thought that people were selling something, I would run in the opposite direction. And I certainly wouldn't ask a question about it because I didn't want to get roped into like the whole, you should, yes, or whatever. But you were doing your makeup and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so simple, and which is still, so funny that now we're here at Restore. But I reached out to you and I was like, I don't know what makeup you're using, but I feel like I need it. And you were like, well, actually, I sell it. So you color matched me and all the things. And what's funny is I actually didn't like the makeup when I got it. And I remember messaging you and being like, I just don't really like this makeup. And you were really busy that day. So you sent me a video, like a troubleshooting video, and I watched it. But then it kind of told you to like just give it a chance, give it your face time to get used to it. So then I loved it and you had let me borrow it. So then I had to give it back to you. And then I went on vacation. I remember being like, I really like that makeup and now I want it. And so, but then I had this thought, I'm like, maybe I need to sell this makeup, which is so crazy because I never thought that I would feel that way. But I don't know. It was like the Lord just kind of kept nudging me. And it's funny how we do that which I think it's good to be careful and really be prayerful if it really is the Lord. But it's like, is it the Lord or is it just me thinking this? And sometimes I think you just have to take a step and the Lord will show you. You don't have to be scared. I think sometimes we worry so much about taking the wrong step and that we're going to like be in trouble for it. But I think that sometimes you just genuinely do just have to take the step and then the Lord will show you. Well, it was very apparent that that was from the Lord. And so it's funny too because maybe a week before that, or I don't know how long it was, but I had a friend reach out about a different company and I had this whole conversation about how I love you very much, but I am not going to be doing network marketing. My husband has very adamantly said this is not what he wants me to do, and I am going to respect that, but also I just genuinely don't feel like this is what I'm supposed to do anyways. And then a week later I'm like, and I remember I called her because I was like, I want you to know that this was not just me lying to you saying, to get out of that. I genuinely, that was the way that I felt. And that was how Adam, him and I's conversation always went. But what's funny is I had a party for Saint, and Adam, we talked about it several times and he was just like, I just really feel like this is something you're supposed to do. And so that was how I really knew it was God, because I knew that if he felt uneasy about it or really against it, that I wasn't going to do it, but because he had a peace about it. And I remember praying that, like, Lord, if this is something that I'm supposed to do, you're going to have to show Adam, because I don't want to do it without his, approval. So I started and I loved it so much. Just the women on your team, on our team, and just everybody. I had heard so many horror stories about network marketing and how everybody's so catty. And I know that that is out there, but it wasn't here. And I was so blessed to have so many women who, I mean, it was like everything everybody did was to help each other out. There's always going to be a little bit of comparison and competition, with different things, but I just felt like genuinely everybody was really just wanting to support you. And it was really just a really cool experience. And I'm thankful that I had that experience because it helped me see that it doesn't have to be the negative. It doesn't have to be that way. And I remember a couple of people that joined my team had been in a different network marketing business and they said to me, like, this is different, And I think that it maybe was part of the company's culture, but I also think it was just part of your culture that you had set with your team. And genuinely, it really was so different. And so it was a really cool experience. And I'll be very honest and say I did not have a big team. All these other founding partner mentors are total rock stars in the regards that they have led huge teams. And I'm very transparent in saying that I have not done that, but I'm okay with it because my experience is my experience. And I know that that's just not what the Lord had for me then, and that's okay. But in the moment, it was kind of frustrating because I was doing all the things, I was like in all the things. We would have these like really awesome calls every week where we would have action steps. And I remember doing all the things that everybody else was doing, and I would see all these women progress in their business. And that was so great, but it was like I was just stuck. And it's not to say that if that happens to you, that means that you're supposed to not be in it. So don't hear me wrong on that, because a lot of times it just takes time and God has a timing. But I am very open with people when I say it is okay to know and be prayerful about when God has a different step for you. And if that is to leave your network marketing business, that's okay too, because that doesn't necessarily mean you're never going to do it again, because clearly He's brought me back to it in a way, and I'll have to kind of talk more about that. But I knew that for some reason the Lord was not allowing me to grow there. And so I was like, Lord, I don't know what I feel like. I know that you brought me here, and so many beautiful things came out of it. I'll never forget that one of the most beautiful things was that, and this is not me. This is because so many people supported me and trusted me in my business. My friend has a children's home in Haiti, and they literally did not have steps to get to the children's home. It was just like rocks. It was very dangerous. And it's very just cool to think that part of my time in Saint was to be able to give to that children's home. And now they have concrete steps, which is so, when I say that, it's not at all to pat myself on the back, because God had to give me the inspiration to know that that's what I needed to give to, but also He had to give me the customers and the people to trust me enough to purchase makeup for me so that I could use that money for that. But that, like, if that was the only thing that I did in my time in Saint, it was totally worth it, because I mean, how could it not be for children to have safe steps to get to their home? But so many good things came out of my time in Saint. But when I knew that it was time to leave, it was not easy, because I had invested so much time and I had so many customers that were just amazing. And, I really was very prayerful about it. And I remember talking to you, and, so many people would say like, oh, if you, leave your network marketing job, your mentor is going to totally just either one, just never talk to you again, or two, be mad at you that you're leaving, or try to talk you into it. And kudos to Heather, because none of those things happened. She was extremely supportive. And I honestly think it was because she just prayerfully knew too, for me, that, I mean, it was like we were on the phone and I was like, I just feel like the Lord is leading me out of this and I can't explain it any other way. And you were like, I actually just feel like I agree. And I was so glad that you were willing and able to say that, because that was a big step. And it would have been really hard if you had have been like, well, Lyndsay, I just think you're not trying hard enough. And there are going to be times when you need to say that to people if you genuinely feel like, okay, there's a time and a place. But for my specific story, it was like, I just knew. And so it was really good to have that support with that. So that's kind of my story about being in it. I don't know if you want to like say anything.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know me. I'm like, oh, I can think of so many stories and so many like really cool God moments along the way. But I feel like one of the things I know I want to share is one of our systems is that we'll talk about with Restore is focusing on the funnel of like just connecting genuinely with people, not with any expectation of it. Like when I connected with you at Walk to Emmaus, it wasn't like I was like, I mean, even if I had felt like, oh, she'd be an amazing, whatever, she'd like the makeup, that's okay too. But it's like we connected because a dear friend mutually connected us. And then from
Right.
that, I shared the value of the product. And then it was like kind of decided and worked your way through that funnel. So I've got a whole podcast episode we'll dig up and link in the show notes afterwards that talks about the funnel. But I feel like our funnel has, like, boiled down to something just so rich and so beautiful, and it all starts with that just like, that first connection and just not like you touched on it when you said the next step, you don't have to know the full thing. I couldn't see that full story of where we would be now, none of us could, but,
Yeah.
like, just being obedient to taking that next step from your end, but then also having the patience and the peace on, like, the distributor's end or on the partner's end to know that it is in God's timing and that all you have to do is love and nurture someone and do the next right thing and not overthink and not, hold yourself back from sharing about something or boldly connecting with someone or even like sharing a third party tool like that troubleshooting. It could have been easy for me to be discouraged, but instead I was like, oh, well, I've got this tool. This works. Let me send it to you. And so that's a beautiful example, I think, your experience of what we want to equip all the partners and advocates for Restore with. And I just love hearing that. But then also, like, when I look at what has been able to come from that, the fruit of like you being able to give back to Haiti and like leverage your profitability for the greater good, like that is also my hope for anybody that's doing this is that they use if they truly feel led to this experience in whatever way, and that's what we can talk about next, is it might not even look like a partner or distributor or, anything in whatever company, and that's great too. But like when you look at it as like a gift from him, when you look to like your husband, like you said, for that approval and like, pray those specific prayers, he will show up. And when he makes it clear to you, you've just got to be obedient to that. And I have to say, one of the greatest strengths of yours as a friend to me is your discernment level and your obedience to that. And I just think that this whole story is such a beautiful example of that. And that's I just want you to know how much of a blessing your obedience and walking step by step in faith has been. And it's really cool that like it's brought us back together in this way. So I think that summarizes what I was gonna say. So tell us more about how the Lord, when he called you out of network marketing, how it's all kind of come full circle, because that's also a really cool story.
Yeah. Okay, so I love Saint, and I don't exactly know how long it was after that, but this is a perfect example of taking your husband's lead and listening to his discernment too. And I'm such a big advocate for that because I just think that I just know that that's how the Lord designed family. And so I just think it's so important. And I know that not everybody has a husband who may be a Christian or they feel is somebody that they can always trust. But even if somebody isn't a Christian, sometimes I think in some way it just works out that the Lord I don't know, it's just
Yes,
like
I agree.
so, I don't speak for everybody when I say you should just always be comforted in that, but I feel very blessed that I can be. And so after my time in network marketing, obviously the Lord brought me out of that. And so I had this genius idea to start a mobile boutique for activewear. And I was living in a camper, and, if you've ever had a boutique, you know that you have to have inventory, and I remember very specifically talking to Heather on the phone about it, and she was like, "I'm not trying to tell you no, but I just feel like, you need to realize that there's so much that goes into that, and I don't want you to just feel overwhelmed." And, we had conversations about it, and even my husband was like, where are we gonna keep all of this? And I don't what's, like, the profit margin gonna be? And, because you wanna make money when you're doing something. I think that was a good example of where I didn't lean into Adam enough, and clearly he still was like, "Okay," and he always supports me. He's always like, I'm not trying to be cheesy, but being, like, my cheerleader, but he is always like, "You can do this," and he's always very supportive, and he's always telling me how he's proud of me for stuff, and so he still supported me even though I think he knew that wasn't probably the best decision, and that's not to say that I didn't have a lot of cool moments when I did that, but I would have to, like, pack up all my stuff, and I would do a pop-up somewhere, and I would have to I would always do it by myself, and so I would be hauling everything inside, setting it up, and then putting everything away, and it was so different than network marketing where it's like you didn't well, for us, we didn't have to have inventory or anything, so it was so much easier to, like, go do an event because you didn't have all of these things, and if somebody wanted to order, they just ordered online, and I'm glad that I did it because it was a learning experience, and I did meet really cool people along the way, but I also just really learned that that is definitely not ever what I wanna do again. It was a lot of work for a little return, and I think that the Lord had me walk through that so that I could really actually appreciate network marketing. So I came to your house, we were talking, and you were like, one of my favorite things that I did in Saint was color matching. I loved it. It was like my favorite thing. You'll talk about like the thread that we were in where I was like color matching everybody's customers. But I just really enjoyed it. And so you had asked me if I wanted to possibly take that on for you. You were at a point in your business where you were doing so many things. And I was like, sure, that would be great. So I started kind of doing that and little things like with your email here and there and basically being like your virtual assistant. And I remember telling you, if you ever hear of anybody else who needs color match help, let me know because this could be like a thing that I could do. And so it's cool how, God didn't immediately bring me back into network marketing in like the traditional sense of I wasn't selling the product, but I was doing assistant work. And so then along came Mackenzie Foltz, who is a rock star and saint. And she had I'm not saying she just blew up overnight as in she wasn't putting in the hard work, but she genuinely, like, blew up overnight and was like, "I can't handle all of this." So, you happened to be with her in Mexico, and she was like, "If you have anybody who could help me, that would be great." And you were like, "I have just the person." And I thought that it was gonna just be maybe for a week or so just to help her get caught up, but it ended up we're going on almost 2 years that I've been working for her, and it's been such a blessing to do this for you and for her. And it's just really cool to be on the back end of network marketing as an assistant because you both run your businesses very differently. And so seeing the way that you operate versus the way she operates, and neither are wrong or better or worse or, in that regard, but they're just very different. And so I've been able to kind of be in the back seat of both of those different ways of running a business. And I really feel like the Lord has helped me see like, what he wants from me before I even knew that I was gonna be getting back into it, so it's been really cool to be on that end of it, and one thing I will say is that if you do decide to do network marketing and join Restore as a partner or an advocate or, any business that you're thinking about doing, it's not only that you could help somebody who joins your team or a customer who buys the makeup from you, but eventually you could get to the point where you need an assistant. And that has been such a huge blessing for me and my family financially, and even just the relationships with you and Mackenzie both. It's been such a huge, just like I said, a blessing and a joy. And so thinking about how there's so many different ways that you can affect people and help people and not it just being the traditional way that they would like join your team. And I think that's been a really cool part of my story through network marketing is being on both sides of it.
I totally agree. I love the freedom aspect that you touched on. That's obviously one of our core values. And there isn't a right or a wrong way to do this business. There are a lot of right ways to do it. There are best practices and steps, but I think, in our previous company it was challenging because it's like we had people who were trying to be more like online influencers like Mackenzie, sharing, doing tons of volume. And then you had somebody like me who's more focused on like the systems and duplication. And like you said, they're both great and they both served us well, but then served you well. But I think that's one of the things that I'm really excited about with Restore is it's perfect. Like the advocate program is made for someone like Mackenzie who might not have the time to be able to pour into, the hundreds of people who join her team, right? But she likes the product, and no pressure, Mackenzie, if you listen to this, but like, if she likes the product, it's meant to be an easy link that she can share to where actually, and I know this is, you love the color matching, but we actually don't intend for people to have to color match with this thing. She can just send people to the quiz. It'll spit out their colors for them, to where, or their curated capsule collection, for them to where they can decide whether that's what they want. And then if they need help, they can go from that. But from like the advocate affiliate side being its own separate compensation plan for perfect for the McKinseys of the world, or the partner program that's definitely more designed for someone like me or like you, the way the heart that you led your business. You were, like I said, one of my top sellers on my team. That was before all the viral crazy like from McKinsey type stuff. But you were, I think, like my top selling direct for most of the time that you were there. But you did it in a way that inspired you to lead by example. So, anyways, I love that you touched on the different ways to do this business. So, and I feel like I feel like we need to do like multiple. I felt this way with all of these FPM. I'm like, we just need to do this like all the time. But I definitely want to touch on Restore because that was the really cool experience to watch you see my initial inspiration and kind of like the little seeds the Lord was planting. I mean, I'm talking like right away. And then I watched you go from like, wait, is this something that I could do? Or like you went from being excited for me to being like, wait a second, do I need to be a part of this? Like on the distributor side to being like, okay, yeah, I actually think I could do this to being all in. And I mean, all in. And you have been from day one, you just like your focus group is on fire. Like, you have connected with people intentionally. Again, you've created that same funnel and it's just, you're exemplifying it. And I feel like you've already had, even though we don't have the compensation plan or the products to sell, I feel like you've already even had more success in this journey. And success doesn't have to be defined in the money you make or the size of your team, right? But just in terms of the fulfillment and the connections of you leveraging your experience, like it's just really cool. So take us back to that back in July when you actually helped me come up with the original name of the company. So tell that story.
Well, before I even go to that part of it, I wanna say that when everything happened with the previous company and it was, like,
Mm.
such a shock, and I remember, talking to you on the phone, and this was before I think this may have been right before Restore was an inspiration for you, but you were like, "We're gonna figure this out," because I'm like, "I don't wanna stop working for you," like, "What are we gonna do?" And but then it went to where Restore, came in the picture, and it was this thing, and I remember just being like, "Whatever it is that you do next, I wanna be there for it. So just know that I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, you can't kick me away even if you wanted to. I am here for it. So whatever it is," and I just remember you calling me and being like, "So, I'm gonna start a network marketing company," and I'm like, "Wow." I mean, it shouldn't surprise me, and it surprised me for a minute, but then I was like, "That this is totally tracking." I mean, why wouldn't you? Because you're so good at it. So, you talked to me about all the things, and there were so many, like, random conversations. I remember that was kind of, like, right in the inspiration time of it, and so you would call me and be like, "Okay, you're never gonna believe this." Like, it was so fun because hearing you get so excited about all the different ways that things were falling into place, but I remember we were trying to think of a name, like, what would be a good name for the company, and I don't exactly remember maybe how I found it. I think maybe I was just Googling words, synonyms, and stuff like that, and we kept talking about how God was just in it, and He was gonna do big things, and we knew that, and I don't know if I thought about the word heal, like HEAL first, or if I thought about he will, as in like he will, do what he says he's going to do. And so it was kind of like a heal, like he will. Could it be heal collective? And so then it was, really exciting. Of course, then we found out we can't use the word heal because, that's like you can't claim that you're going to heal people or whatever. And that was back when it was going to be the magical Neosporin. But
Usually
um,
it still is, and so if
it
you're
was
in the store now, know that don't use the language heal. We learned that very quickly from attorneys, but cellular restoration molecule and cellular renewal, these are words that we can and will use because that's what it does. But yes, but heal to tackle that as a word, as a descriptor was tricky and definitely not as the name of the company. So we are like, oh shoot, well now what do we do? And thankfully Restore Collective came out of prayer. I think I've shared that story on the podcast too. I don't know where or else I would link it, but it's pretty cool. And that you were also there present for. So it's
Yeah,
just
and we were all trying to figure out that was funny too because we were like, "Clear," "What are the words?" And then it was restore, and I'll be honest, for a minute, I was like, "Dang it, I wanted it to be heal because that was really cool." But then obviously that's fine, and it worked out the way it was supposed to, and maybe that can still be part of the story, somewhere down the line. But yeah, it was just exciting because it's like when God calls you to something, and I remember even when I went into Saint, I couldn't have possibly known what that was gonna be like or, what he was gonna do through that, and I remember thinking with this, when I kind of started feeling like, "Maybe I'm supposed to do this," because at first I was kinda like, "I'll just work for you," whatever you need, I was already doing, but then I started thinking, "Maybe I wanna be a part of this," and really, before anything ever happened with Saint, before anything ever came with Restore, I felt like I was getting this desire in my heart to do network marketing again, which was weird for me. I was like, "Am I just imagining this?" It's so funny how God, like, slowly gives you that inspiration before it's time. I was like, "There's no company that I trust," because I'm very me, and kinda touched on this, but I'm very particular about like, who I represent and what they stand for, and so, I guess there were times when I would, like, think about if I were to do network marketing, what company would I do, and it would have to be something that I love because I'm not just gonna do it just to do it. I was like, "No, I couldn't work for them. No, I can't represent them. I don't feel connected to that." And so there was never an answer to that. But then this came along and it's been such a blessing because I know I and I'm not putting my trust in you, Heather. I put my trust in the Lord, but I have known you long enough and have seen your journey with the Lord grow, and I'm so proud of you for that, that I know that I can trust you and Roger as, like, representing this company, and I don't feel fearful or worried that I'm gonna, like, change my mind, and I know that we're all human and we're not always gonna agree on everything, but I feel, a sense of I don't know what the word is. I just feel confident that
Mhm.
I can be a part of this company and I don't have to worry about the types of things that you might, you know, represent because I know that you are putting the Lord first. Jesus is our CEO. So that's really cool.
Well, and I love you touched on, and this is a perfect segue into your gifts. You're from the high5test.com. We'll talk about that. But I feel like when I talk about diversity and specifically with the founding partner mentors, I knew that I didn't want a bunch of people that were just like fangirls. That sounds weird because I'm not like a again, I'm not an influencer type, but I didn't want yes people. I wanted people who would push back or would not always agree with me because that's what makes this thing better. And you have always, like, that's also another factor in our friendship is like, you've always been bold enough to be able to share that with me. And I love that. So it's such a blessing to be able to have your boldness and your faith. And again, like I said, the discernment to where even in the podcast editing, like very few times has this happened, but she, if she's like, "Oh, I don't know, did you really mean to say that?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't. Take it out, take it out." So, even things like that, it's a blessing. So I love that you shared that. Okay, so you're 5, and again, this is just like a way for those of you guys who want to kind of learn more about your God-given strengths because I really do feel like sometimes these things we take for granted that like you might not even realize them about yourself and the kind of gift that they are to others around you. But when I look at yours, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, this is where, like, you are it just is a great descriptor." And so yours are optimism, empathizer, deliverer, focus expert, and commander. And I just love those from, like, a founding partner mentor perspective because it's like you get it done, you show others how to do it, but you do it with heart and empathy, and you've got that optimistic, hope and confidence, like you said, which I think is really inspiring to people, and I've actually seen you grow even in that, particular strength and, like, build that muscle along the way, and it's just yeah. Do you feel like those are a good descriptor of you? Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. It's funny to hear optimism because sometimes, well, you are so optimistic about everything. So sometimes, like, in comparison to you, I feel like I'm totally not an optimistic person, but, I think it also probably depends on what the optimism is towards, but yeah, it's funny. Yeah, so optimistic, commander, what were the others? Empathizer? I can't remember what.
Focus expert and deliverer, I think are definitely
Yeah,
things that have been I'm not deliverer actually, both of those 2 things are on my like, they're the and you know this about me, they're the 2, like, worst. Like, I'm totally ADD, my brain is in 10,000,000 places at all times, and this is something I have to work on is, like, if you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it. If you say you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'll do that. That sounds great." And then I'm like, "I can't do that. I just don't have the capacity to do that." And then it doesn't happen, and then I feel terrible. So,
yes.
like, that's where it's like you having those strengths, from, like, the assistant side where I was weak has just been a blessing. But yeah, I love those 2 things I think are really important skill sets too.
Yeah, deliver, I would say, and it's funny because one of the girls in my focus group, her name's Kim, and she's really special. And, there's a lot of things that are going on, like time wise and date wise, and just different details that we can't really share because, for one, we might not know, what those are. This is not a negative thing at all. I'm just sharing an example of how I am so like this too, where I'm like, I know we said this, and at the time, that's what it was, but now it's changed. And so, she was like, "I am a deliverer, and I wanna follow through with things when I say I'm gonna do 'em." And it wasn't like that we were not following through, it was just, it's just a start of a company is so unpredictable, so you
Yeah.
can't always know. And so I remember being like, "Me too, trust me too." Like, if I say I'm gonna do something by a certain time, I'm probably gonna do it at least 20 minutes before that certain time because like, if I have a deadline, and it's a funny thing about you and I because, like, I know I'll post to, like, your Instagram, and I'm like, "Can you just give me a day that you want me to post Instagram for that?" Because if I have a day, I'm gonna have it done, but if I don't, then I'm like, "Oh, it doesn't really matter," and sometimes I'll, kinda get off track, but you're like, "I just don't care," and I'm like, "But I just want you to give me a day." So it's funny. It's funny about that. And I don't feel like I have a problem with focusing on something. I wouldn't say, like, ADHD or anything like that. I feel like when I'm doing something, I can really focus on it, which I guess is a good thing. And I feel like so many people around me, like my best friends and my sister and you are the opposite of that. So I guess it's a good thing that we're in each other's lives because, you know, I also think that you're such a good multitasker and that's not me. Like I have to do one thing at a time. I can't be doing 12 things. It's going to be terrible. And I can't even do it to begin with at all. So it's cool how we have different, strengths and weaknesses, but really the weaknesses are just I feel like the Lord gives us those in a way that we do have to rely on other people because then we would just be thinking we could do everything on our own, and that's not how he designed us. He designed us for community. He designed us to have friends and family and people who are on our side and can pick us up where we, need it.
A to the men. Yep, you nailed it. So I love that like peek inside. Like it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz where it's like pulling back the curtain. It's like, yeah, don't like you said, don't please don't anyone put their hope in me. Like just know that pray that Roger and I will continue to seek the Lord for that wisdom and guidance direction and people like Lindsay and the other founding partner mentors and whoever is on their team, like the Kims. I love Kim so much. And I love that that's what you guys being similar in that allows you to deeper connect with other people. So love it. I think this is one of the coolest parts about this podcast journey is being able to kind of like really get the inside scoops.
Yeah. And like
So
reflect. It's really cool to just think about the way God put us together. It's just crazy.
for sure. Well, so these last ones, because I know we've been talking for a while. And so, but I do want to be able to ask the same questions I've been asking to everyone. And so the first question is going to be if you had to pick one of our core values that resonates the most with you, which one would it be and why?
Yeah. I've been thinking about this. It's really hard to pick because they're all so good, but I have to pick more than one and I'll try to like be quick about it. But for one, biblical wisdom, obviously, because when I think about that, it's like you can't even have any type of success without biblical wisdom. I mean, even people who are not Christians, they don't realize it, but probably a lot of the things that they're doing in their business come from the Bible, different practices. And so biblical wisdom is very important. I would say, along with that, transparency. And I think the fact that, we are a Christian company, and I think that it's so good to just be able to say that and like really own it because I think people crave just truth. They crave transparency and they want to know what you stand for. And it's like they can do with that whatever they want to do with that. And we don't expect anybody in Restore to be a Christian or believe exactly the same way that we do. But that is our foundation and that is a great thing and it's okay. I would rather people just know that and be very clear on that than to wonder or be surprised by that or feel that they're not sure. I think that the transparency part, but then also family, that to me, a company that puts your family first and truly, I'm just going to give this example that on the week of Thanksgiving, a lot of companies have Black Friday sales. And I remember Roger was telling you, because y'all were together with your family and you were just messaging us, in our founding partner mentor group. And I think he said something like, "Why are you working?" And you're like, "I'm not really working. I'm just talking to my friends." But, he was like, "You don't need to be working during Thanksgiving." And then we started talking about how we can manage not having to be worried about a sale on a family week, which is Thanksgiving. And I was just like, how amazing is it that Roger and Heather want to make this to where family is priority and that when we're supposed to be with our families, that is what we get to do. And we don't have to be thinking about this business, which is their baby. It's your baby, but you're already thinking about how you don't want us to be worried about it when we're with our family. So biblical wisdom, transparency, and family, I guess is what the ones.
I love it. Yeah, and we from that, I think we decided, yeah, we won't be having our Black Friday sales and specials and new products and all that stuff. It'll come at least the Friday before, which I think we'll call Family Friday, so that it's like the goal is that people can unapologetically focus that whole week to take a rest and a respite from their business as opposed to, I mean, I remember when I just got chills when I had my boutique, it was the same thing. We always had a sample sale at my bridal shop on Black Friday. And so I would have to wake up either first thing in the morning after Thanksgiving with family and drive there, or, and it would be like the busiest day, but it required so much of my time away from what was the whole purpose of me doing it to begin with. So, yes, I love that. And I also love and feel like to bring it full circle with the name. So, when we decided on Restore Collective, I think what you loved about heal is because it tied to the Lord, right? He will heal and heal. And so we knew it had to have a T, and the T had to be in the middle because the cross is at the center of everything we do. And so I think, in case you haven't seen, and I can't remember if I've talked about this, but if you're watching this on YouTube, or next time you see the Restore logo, look that the cross is literally at the center of our logo. And it's one of those ways that it might not be this overt obvious thing, but if you know, you know, and it truly is intentional at on every facet of like keeping him at the center. So
Yeah.
I felt like that was a good time to interject that little nugget.
Yes.
So let's talk about your branch. So I know this is a tricky question because it's highlighting more like the differences when it's not there's no competition between these founding partner mentors. And as we've already talked about it, I know there's people listening that are like, oh shoot, I like this person and I like this person and I don't know. And I know Lyndsay agrees with me that like we want to empower you, the listeners, to make the decision that you feel led to make and with the person, but knowing that we're all working together. But I do think that there's something special to know, and this is why I'm asking this question, is like, what do you envision kind of setting your branch apart, like, and having it look slightly different organically than the other FPM branches of the tree?
Oh, well, like you said, we all have such similar, well, we're all very different. In fact, me and Sophie were just talking about that yesterday about how each one of us is so totally different. Not even, I don't know, it's just crazy how different we are. But our values and our mission for this, I think, is just so similar. So it's really hard to say what would set me apart. I guess one of my biggest things that I am very passionate about now, and I didn't always feel this way. I mean, I've always wanted to put being a mom first and being a wife first. But even when I was doing Saint, I'm thankful that I wasn't successful there because the Lord had not, I wasn't at the place where I needed to be. And I'm still not like at this place that I've arrived, but I'm just saying my heart has changed so much. And so I never want anyone on my team to feel like that they need to do all of these things to be enough or to be able to have joy, because the only way that we're going to have joy is if we are doing what the Lord has called us to do. We don't need all these extra things. We don't need, to be some top businesswoman, some top seller, some, whatever to have joy. The only way any of that is going to bring us joy is if it is actually what the Lord wants us to do. Like, for example, you know, there are people who were born to be doctors and they live their whole life thinking about being a doctor and they become a doctor. If I were to look at somebody who is a doctor and be like, man, being a doctor brings them so much joy, I should be a doctor too. I would be like, that would be crazy because that would not bring me joy. So obviously, if somebody's on my team, that means they're in network marketing, but that doesn't mean that you have to run your business like somebody else or be a top seller or, have the biggest team or run your business the way everybody else does it. My biggest passion is like, run your business the way God wants you to run your business because that is the only way that you are going to have joy in this. Because if you do it any other way, it's going to be stressful and you're still going to have stress times. I mean, life is just life and business is business. This is a job. But if you're doing it the way that the Lord intended you to do it, and even if that looks totally different than other people, that is what is going to be the biggest thing that's going to bring you joy. And so I just don't ever, I want anybody who joins my team to know that we don't need all the extra things. We don't need to pile a million things on our plate. We need to just do those intentional things that the Lord wants for us to do. And that's the way that we're going to be successful, whatever that looks like, and have joy through what we're doing.
Oh, that's so good, and joy is my word of the year, so, I love everything you're saying. And that's exactly that's yeah, that's how you achieve joy. I love that you just made it really simple. So, I feel like you also just described your ideal partner, so I won't, like, make you expound on that further, but I feel like it's someone who wants to feel welcomed just as she is, right? Would you agree that's like
Yes, and I do actually have a little thing to say about that.
right?
Yeah, so when we had our founding partner mentor retreat, we had the sweetest girl, Victoria. She did a training for us, and, so many people can, like, talk to you about how God created you uniquely and all this stuff, but the way she did it was just so special, and she told us that we had our own scent. Like, she gave us these little perfume bottles and said, "What are the things that make you unique? What's the scent that you leave with people?" And so that was just really special, but then we went to church together and we saw her, and I kind of went to the side and talked to her, and I was just like, "That was really powerful. I'm so thankful that you did that for us, and you're just really God has really put you here for a reason." And then she, like, immediately spoke into my life and was like, "I just feel like I keep thinking about Gideon when I think about you, and Gideon from the Bible." And I remember when she said it, I was kinda like, "Gideon? I don't know." I've been a Christian for a long time, and I've been in church my whole life, so I've probably heard about Gideon, but I wasn't super sure exactly what she meant. But then she was like, she said, "God, he didn't see the leadership qualities in himself. He had to just trust that the Lord was gonna use him." So then I kind of did this deep dive into Gideon and watched this video and read the scripture about Gideon, and part of it is that he took this group of men who were gonna fight for him down to the water, and God told him to have them drink the water. And do you know this story?
Well, what's funny is I think it's about to come up in my Bible recap. I mean, obviously I've read it, but yeah, keep going because I'm sure like me, I'm like, it's fuzzy. It's real
Yeah.
fuzzy.
So, basically, God was like, "Ask them," I think he said, "Ask them to drink out of the river," and if they cup the water in their hands and drink out of it like this, they're the ones who are supposed to fight with you, but if they just put their head down in the water and drink the water, that's not the people that are for you. And I didn't really fully understand that at first, and I don't wanna ever say, like, "This is what the Bible means by that," because it means what it means. But for me, in that moment, I almost felt like the Lord was saying, "You want the people who are obviously when you're thirsty, you have to drink the water." But the people who are drinking from the water like this and not putting their head down, they're also watching out for everybody else. So that was, like, the thing is it's like, while they're drinking the water, they're not just with their head down only, thinking about themselves because 'cause they're thirsty. They're also thinking about everybody else while they're also drinking the water, and it's like, I want the people who want to look out for everybody else, not just themselves. And that was like, I keep telling you, like, I had this really cool God moment and I haven't told you yet. And I wanted to save it for the podcast, but that's already been evident in like just the founding partner mentors. And it's already been evident in our focus groups. And that's just for me. I don't ever want anybody to feel like I, as a leader, am just drinking the water and not thinking about them. I've told them this, and I wasn't always like this, even in saying I didn't always have this attitude, but I want them to outsell me, outrank me, all the things. I want it to be about them. I don't want to be on this pedestal of I'm the founding partner mentor and whatever. I genuinely want the girls who are on my team to soar and to just feel so happy, whatever that is. Like I said, if that's just, having pedicure money, if that's just being part of the community, if that's being a top seller, a top leader, that's what I want is the joy for whatever God has for them. And I want them to be the type that look out for everybody else too.
Oh my gosh. And I love that, like, I didn't even know, like, even the story with Victoria, like, I love that story. I feel like you're gonna need to speak on stage from that. So maybe at the welcome home event, I'm gonna maybe do a whole talk on that because there's
Okay.
so much goodness and what a beautiful visual it's such a great representation. So let's wrap up with some fun stuff, which is product related. So I wanted to first of all show because your grandma, you actually have a couple. What I think this is also what helped us like narrow down the names is this is Charlotte. If you're watching, it's like a beautiful champagne. It's what I've got in my inner corner and also as my highlighter or illuminator because everything's multi-purpose. But you also have Mary Joy, and you keep referencing Joy. And so we have Mary Lou, which is another kind of illuminator, eye glow. And then, of course, we have Joy, which is a gorgeous cheek lip, too. That's one of my favorites. But outside of that, what is your favorite product that you've fallen in love with so far?
Well, you probably already know what I'm gonna say, and that's the Peach Heaven, which is our which is our product that's for redness, which actually I'm not even wearing it right now because our skin tint is covered so well. But I remember when I first tried it and it just glided on my skin and I was like, "This is heaven." So then we now call it Peach Heaven. It's not even I don't know, that's actually are we
It's
actually
called
calling
Heaven. It's good
what
not
am I
heaven, but it's literally called Heaven, and which then that inspired all the bright balance shades are H words. So there's like hope, halo, heaven, harmony. I can't
oh,
remember
yeah.
but anyway, like, but no, it's literally called Heaven, and I use it daily. It's what covers the redness on my nose. It's so good.
It is so good, and it's funny because I think probably everybody else, every other founding partner mentor is so excited about the creation of the product, and I'm just not I don't know. It's not that it doesn't I'm not interested in it, but it's not what, I don't know, sparks joy for me, and so when you had all the products for us to try at the retreat and everybody's dabbing, and I'm kinda just like, "Whenever y'all figure it out and pick the colors and whatever's gonna stay, you just let me know," and this is why this works for me is because simplicity. I just wanna know, just tell me what to use. That's what I'm gonna use, and I'll use it forever and ever, amen. It's just funny how we're all different in that.
I love it, and I'm sure lots of people listening can relate to that too. So,
Yeah.
speaking of, I would love to have you wrap up with a prayer for everybody listening. I'm just so thankful for being able to share this story, but I'd love to for you to wrap us up in prayer.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here. It's been really cool to talk about all the things with you, and I don't know, it's just a very special moment for me.
Love it, love it.
Okay, let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for just this time together. Thank you that you have just brought Heather and I, and everybody else that's listening and a part of Restore and will be a part of Restore to this moment. And just thank you that you love us, and thank you that you see us, and thank you that you don't expect us all to be the same and do things the same way. And thank you that we get to be unique, and you know that one way isn't wrong or right, but just it's different, and that's okay. And I pray for anybody who's listening, Lord, to this episode and to all of the episodes, Lord, that they would never feel like they need to jump into something just because they like maybe aren't enough or aren't doing enough, Lord, but only stepping into this if they truly feel like it is something that the Lord is calling them to do. Because, like we talked about, that's the only way that we're going to have joy is if it's from you and for you. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes along the way. And it doesn't mean if we, take a step in a direction that maybe we're not meant to go in, that you will not give us grace and you won't lead us back, because you do always do that for us. But just thank you that you love us enough to give us grace and mercy. And thank you that you sent your son down the cross for us, Lord, so that we could spend eternity with you, Lord. And I just love you, and I thank you and I praise you for all that you do. In your name I pray. Amen.
Well, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I loved every minute of today, and I know those listening did too. So, thanks again for being here.
Thank you. I love you.
Love you.